Welcome to Stranger Connections, where I celebrate wonderfully weird people and quirky stories. I'm your curious beast and host, Lisa David Olson, the practically world famous humorist, interactive speaker, and connection queen. So reach out if you want me to help you reignite your team or event. Welcoming today, it's afternoon where she's sitting, morning for me, all the way from the French Alps, which I don't really know where that is yet, but we're going to learn. It is nutrition and health coach, Helen Mallaburn. Welcome to Stranger Connections, Helen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you are in the French Alps. I want to know more about that area. So it's afternoon for you. That's exciting.
Yeah, so where I live now is it's a big ski area. So it's really popular in the winter for snow sports. We're just over the border from Italy and Switzerland, so we're kind of right on the edge of those Alps there. A couple of hours kind of further south from Geneva.
As we're recording, it is September 3rd. So what is the weather like there?
At the moment, it is blue skies and kind of bright sunshine, so it's quite warm. But luckily, it's not as hot as it has been. We had a really big heat wave, which was pretty intense. About a week or two ago.
And that means you have severe winters. I mean, isn't that where we go to
Yeah.
ski?
Yes, yeah. So we get the extreme. So this summer has been really hot, and then and it's just as beautiful in the summer as it is in the winter. But yeah, we'll get a lot of snow in the winter, and it is pretty dramatic, the surroundings and the views from where we live. So we're very lucky.
If you live there legally, you have to own skis, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's the law. That's fantastic. Well, I brought you on today because we want to talk about your journey through Hashimoto's, and that you are a person who, I don't know if we say afflicted or suffers or whatever, has it, and that you became a recovery specialist. And the fact that I was drawn to you because I learned this year that I also have Hashimoto's, and that kind of explained a lot of things that the mainstream hospitals really don't understand. That's my experience here in Minnesota and near Wisconsin. It's not understood in mainstream clinics and hospitals. So I had to do some really interesting about ways to figure out my own affliction. I was drawn to you on the internet, and so I'd like to learn about your journey.
Okay, yeah, it's the same here. It's not really, the autoimmune side of it really isn't understood or dealt with. The only treatment you get is for the end result, which is hypothyroidism, which doesn't deal with the underlying cause. So I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's in 2012 whilst I was working in the Hamptons. And I was really quite ill leading up to that. I'd been diagnosed with celiac disease 8 years prior to that. And throughout that entire time and prior to that celiac disease, my symptoms just progressively got worse and worse. I was backwards and forwards to the doctors, not really getting any answers. My thyroid results were abnormal when I was diagnosed with celiac disease. They retested and it came back normal, which is quite common in the early stages of Hashimoto's because it fluctuates as that attack is happening on your thyroid. They should have tested antibodies and they didn't. And I was left for another 8 years with no follow-up, no testing on my thyroid at all. And I was in quite a mess by the time they did actually diagnose. I was working, but I was only just working. I was really struggling. Even with medication, I struggled to regulate it. I struggled to kind of get through like the daily activities, like taking care of myself, showering. I was in a lot of pain. I had huge amounts of fatigue. Brain fog was horrendous. I couldn't remember names, faces. I got lost in places that I'd known for years and years because I couldn't orient myself. I couldn't remember. I'd know where I needed to be, but I wouldn't remember how to get there from where I was in places that I'd known for years. It was really quite scary. I thought I was losing my mind. Whole conversations, I'd have conversations with my husband and then later deny we'd had them because they were just gone for me. They hadn't happened.
Wow. I never connected that part. I just thought I thought maybe it was attention issues or something like that. I hadn't connected that part before. There's so much I don't know because this is all new to me, and so there's just so much I don't know. And going through it in my side, I went to the hospital. They do the basic panel run, and they tell you about, is it T4? And what I've learned through a naturopath in my area, Patty Barch of Naturally Unbridled Wellness, that T4, they'll treat thyroid, they'll treat T4 to make it raise up and give you this med. It still doesn't affect helping you heal. It's just going, look, that number's great. So these people, in fact, some people in my family are taking things that are making that T4 look pretty, and it's not helping their symptoms whatsoever. And why mainstream hospitals don't get it is frustrating. So I ended up going to a neighborhood clinic and paying for my own panel, because that was what was suggested to me. And that's when they found out the underlying readings. And then my chiropractor said, hey, let's look at your iron, have him look at your iron too. Why am I going all around the world here or all around the city and going, what do you think? What do you having to be my own physician? It's frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, low iron is really common with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, because low stomach acid is associated with both. And if you've got low stomach acid, you can't absorb the iron. So low iron is really common with Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism, as is B12 deficiency, which is, I also have that on the autoimmune side of things, which the symptoms are very similar. So again, that's something that should be routinely checked, and it isn't, unfortunately. I had to really fight for treatment for the B12 side of things.
So you basically have to be your own advocate. I mean, let's give people some ideas. If you have, what are you telling your groups? If you have this, that, then you might be on the spectrum of Hashimoto's.
Yeah, so if you're struggling, I would say fatigue's a big one. Weight gain for some people, that it was a little for me. My weight would fluctuate, and before I changed my diet, I was heavier than I am now, and I always had been a little bit, but it did kind of fluctuate up and down. I was never massively overweight, but some people really, really struggle with the weight gain, because if your thyroid isn't producing the hormones that it should be doing, and you're not being given the medication in the right quantities, or you've got a conversion issue from T4 to T3, T3 is your active hormone, then you can't, your metabolism is going to be slower, so your energy production is slower, so losing that weight is really, really difficult. So that is something that's quite common. Mood issues, again, I struggled really badly with that. So if you're finding your mood is constantly low, or you're on that side of things where it can change rapidly, I would find that I'd be quite happy, quite calm, and something would just flip me.
Right. Yeah, all of a sudden you're irritated that your favorite cake is on the counter or something. You're like, wait, why am I mad?
Yeah, it was crazy. And like in your head, you could hear things like, whoa, your reaction is way over the top. But I just couldn't reel that in. Once it was gone, I just didn't seem to have that control over it. So that, again, those mood swings, the kind of low mood, the brain fog, again, is another common symptom. Hair loss, the loss of kind of the outer bit of your eyebrows can be quite common. I didn't get that, but I did find that kind of at my temples, my hair became extremely thin. Yes. So when I put my hair up, you could see that there was like patches that were really quite thin. Yeah, sometimes people will start to notice tingling in their extremities, in their hands, and their feet.
Like Raynaud's.
Yes, like loss of sensation or pins and needles. With the B12 combined, that is another thing. The B12 does that as well. It affects the nerves. So yeah, there's quite a lot of symptoms that go along with digestive symptoms are really common.
That's so interesting, because the hospitals, I wore them out because I have such a bad gut, and it's to the point where I was not eating because I would just bloat like crazy. I still suffer some of that. But again, that naturopath that I referred to, she, after years of 2 different major hospitals doing all the tests, and your food's going through, but I was never going to the bathroom. And then she was able to have me try enzymes when I eat. And now I can eat without pain, but I still will get the bloating stuff. I didn't ever put that together with all of this.
Yeah, it's really common. When they've studied autoimmune conditions such as Hashimoto's, they found that leaky gut, which intestinal permeability, precedes the development of autoimmune conditions. They weren't sure initially whether they could see the relationship was there, but which came first. but they now know that from research that leaky gut comes first and the autoimmunity comes afterwards. So gut issues are really, really common with autoimmune stuff.
Why
So
do
yeah,
you think mainstream hospitals and clinics dance around them? And I'm certainly not trying to put them down. There's so many things that they're helpful for, but why is Western medicine so uneducated in the things that you are able to share?
I think the main reason is that they don't practice holistically. So if you've got an issue, you're referred on by your doctor, you'll go see a specialist for that particular issue. None of them work together. None of them. So if you've got a thyroid issue, or if you've got Hashimoto's, you'll be sent to somebody who deals with kind of the thyroid and endocrine issues. However, it's the immune system that's a problem. It's the immune system that is attacking the thyroid. When I'm working as a nutritional therapist, I look at the whole system and look at, okay, we've got X, Y, and Z symptoms. What's causing those symptoms? Which systems aren't balanced? Which systems are maybe a little sluggish or need some support? And you can tell with those symptoms which systems are at play. But that doesn't happen. They've narrowed it down, I think, so much with modern medicine that each kind of organ has its own speciality. None of it works together, and it's not connected. That your whole system works in tandem with each other. No one organ or system works exclusively on its own. If one isn't working, it impacts the rest of your system.
Yeah, like your car.
Yeah.
If a belt pops off, you're on the side of the road. So we need to pay attention to our engine lights in our heads.
Yeah.
And so that led you to be a Hashimoto's recovery specialist.
Yeah.
And you have a thyroid testing checklist for people that are in your group.
I do, yes. That's something that's really common. You'll go to the doctors and they'll test your TSH, which is the go-to test for thyroid. It's not actually a thyroid hormone. It is a stimulating hormone which triggers your thyroid to produce the correct amount of thyroid hormone and release it. So it doesn't actually do anything for you. It is the thyroid hormones itself, the T4 and the T3, that you need to be checking. So you need to be checking your free T4, your free T3, and then also the antibodies as well. So it's a full panel that needs to be checked, not just that TSH, because that TSH can look fine and your free T4 and your free T3 can be out of whack completely.
And so if somebody is going through the same thing I went through, that's similar to you, what kind of advice would you say? Maybe they say that, oh, the clinic wants to stick me on a medicine. They don't know about Hashimoto's. Do you have great advice across the board of, oh my gosh, this person is brand new to it, they should do this?
Okay, yeah, definitely look at diet and lifestyle. The medication will sort out it'll replace the thyroid hormones that your thyroid isn't producing, but it won't address the immune attack side of things. So you need to look at what's triggering your immune system. Diet is a big part of that. Lifestyle is also another big part. So things like stress, things like toxins that maybe you're exposed to in your workplace or at home in your beauty regime. Are you getting good sleep? Because that can affect a lot of things. It can affect your gut health, it can affect your mood, your detoxification. Yeah, it has a huge impact. So there's a lot of areas I would start. I would say if you are looking at changing your diet, look for an anti-inflammatory diet. So get those inflammatory foods out of there. That's going to be a massive, massive help. It's going to calm the inflammation. Inflammation is a part of the immune response. It's going to calm that immune attack and help you get some of those symptoms back under control.
The anti-inflammatory part is huge. And
Massive.
You said you're also celiac sensitive.
Yeah.
And I saw, and we will share information as well, that you have groups on Facebook and I know Instagram too, and you go live. Fascinating stuff. The most recent one I saw was you were so proud. You were batch cooking. And I was just like, oh, you like rule the world. And it was some curry dish. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to do that. So
yeah,
let's talk about batch cooking and the reasons behind it. And also, what is anti-inflammatory diet? What's the best stuff we can have?
Okay, the batch cooking side of things is something I recommend, especially for my clients that come to me who have very little energy when they first arrive. On the days that you feel that you don't have that energy, you're going to reach for those foods that aren't going to help you.
Potato chips. Give me some chips.
Yeah, exactly.
They're right there. I can count on them. No, don't.
But they're the things that are going to drive that inflammatory response, that autoimmune attack. So you want to do yourself a favor in the days that you do have the energy when you are cooking, make 2-3 times as much as you need, put it in the fridge, put it in the freezer. So on the days that you are really struggling, you don't have to worry about it. You can just get it out, pop it in the microwave, and you've got a nutritious meal that's going to help you recover rather than hinder your recovery. So
And
that's
it's probably, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so that's the batch cooking side. It really can help you manage your time, manage your energy, and make things just way easier for yourself. And then the anti-inflammatory side of things, so you'd be looking at foods that trigger inflammation, so sugar, white refined carbohydrates, so anything that's made from white flour that's had the fiber removed from it. The fiber helps slow your blood sugar response down, and that kind of will keep that inflammation in check and kind of keep the leaky gut under control and the autoimmune attack. If you are eating the refined flours, kind of the white pasta, the white rice, white bread, cakes, biscuits made from white flour, all of those things shoot your blood sugar up really, really quickly. And that causes that inflammation to rise. It causes cortisol to rise. And basically, it can trigger that autoimmune response. So
white flour is evil. Noted.
Yes. So go for like the whole grain, the whole-meal options that still have that fiber in it, and look for grains like the pseudo grains. I quite often recommend to clients things like buckwheat that's not actually a wheat, it's a seed, because that's not refined. Things like amaranth, millet don't tend to be refined. With clients, I tell them to avoid gluten and dairy because both of those drive the autoimmune response. They increase zonulin in your gut, which basically causes leaky gut in the end. So it's about taking those foods out that are going to be pushing that autoimmune response. Processed foods are obviously a prime example of that. They're full of refined flours, refined oils, sugars, emulsifiers, which again in themselves they tend to cause that leaky gut. So
man, so when I work full time in an office, and my go-to when I'm feeling low or just low energy, my go-to, because I don't have to leave my desk, is just like little crackers or something. So I'm probably hurting myself having something like that because it's processed.
Yeah, probably. You want to look at, if you are going to have something processed, you're looking at balancing your meal so that it doesn't spike your blood sugar. So that's the main problem. So if you're having those crackers, what can you have with it that's going to calm that response down? So what protein can you include there? What fiber rich foods you can include there, and healthy fats as well. They all slow that blood sugar response down. They take longer to break down and digest.
Peanut butter would be my friend.
Yeah,
yes,
perfect.
Not cheese because it's dairy. I know.
Yeah, not dairy, not with Hashimoto's. I wouldn't recommend. But like things like vegan cheeses, as long as they're not full of all sorts of rubbish ingredients, you just have to check the labels. But some of them are really good because some of those are made from nuts, and they're naturally fermented. So that would be a good alternative.
Oh yeah, like cashew based cheese. Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that a lot. And so when you're batch cooking, what is your favorite go-to? What should, like you made that curry. Do you have favorites that are easy to do ×3?
Yeah, things like that. Obviously, things that have got the sauces in it so that it's, when you reheat it, it doesn't dry out. So it's quite nice. So curries, stir fries, quite often I use split pea pasta in place of white gluten containing pasta, and I'll make basically a stir fry, a kind of tomato rich sauce to go with that, loads of veggies in it, and that's usually quite spicy, quite nice. I usually have that in the fridge to go.
Yum. And pretend I'm a third grader and explain leaky gut. I have a really hard time getting that clear in my brain.
Okay, so it's referred to as intestinal permeability officially, but it tends to get kind of bandied around as leaky gut. And what happens is your digestive tract is classed as like external to you. So this is your filter. Your immune system is about 70 to 80% of your immune system resides within your gut to stop things getting from that digestive tract into the rest of your system. So it's your filtration, it's your first kind of line of defense. So you want those walls within in the digestive tract to stop things getting through, to stop pathogens getting through, to stop food particles getting through that trigger reactions. So that's how it should operate normally. When you've got leaky gut, the gaps between the cells kind of open, when they shouldn't and allow foods to get through. So if you're eating inflammatory foods, it causes damage to that lining, it causes damage to the balance of the bacteria that basically regulate that immune system within your digestive tract. And it allows, again, those cells to kind of part to allow things through. So if you're eating lots of sugar, if you're eating things that are causing blood sugar dysregulation, the refined carbohydrates, the processed foods, foods that you're sensitive to, it's going to increase that inflammation within your gut. It's going to damage that kind of protective lining between your kind of the internal part of your digestive tract and the wall, and then that's going to allow those cells to open. Once those cells have opened and let those particles, those pathogens pass through, your immune system then has to respond, and this is when that autoimmune response can come into play. If your immune system is constantly dealing with this, it can start to mistake things such as things like gluten, that basically the structure of it can start to say, okay, this is foreign, it shouldn't be here. And anything that in your tissue that is very similar to the protein that's in the gluten can also then get attacked. They'll create antibodies against it. Your thyroid, some of your thyroid tissue is very similar in structure to the gluten protein and the dairy protein. And that's when those antibodies start to be created against your own tissue, basically.
Brilliant. Thank you. I've never had it. Anytime I look it up, I didn't get it. Thank you.
No
And
problem.
so really by diet and lifestyle, you have turned your own health around. True?
Yes, completely. Yeah.
That is fantastic. And I, looking online, you openly show some of the photos where you were 60 pounds heavier, and
Yeah.
you definitely have energy now, and you definitely look healthier. And one of the things you stated was, it's okay to have some cushion to us, so we don't have to be pick thin. That would be
Yeah.
unhealthy as well. There are different extremes.
Yeah, definitely. I would say when I first went on an anti-inflammatory diet, I lost weight very quickly. I lost 2 to 3 dress sizes, I would say, in a couple of months, which was quite quick. I wasn't aiming to lose weight, it just naturally came off. But I would say it went too far for me. I was very slim. Not unhealthily so, but not naturally where I should have been. And although I recovered a lot of my energy and a lot of the symptoms cleared up, such as my insomnia my gut symptoms went completely just by changing my diet, I still wasn't where I wanted to be. And it was only when I started studying nutrition and I kind of tweaked what I was doing when I realized that maybe, yes, I've taken all this out, but maybe I haven't put things back in that need to be back in. And I was missing certain nutrients. And I started to support that side of things, that I went back up a little bit in my weight. And I'm now at that point where my ideal weight is, and it stays there. It doesn't fluctuate.
Fantastic.
So now that, yeah.
I love
now that I've
that.
got everything where it should be, it just
Do you just feel like a
stays.
queen, like, oh, I did this myself?
Yeah, some days it is like, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of effort went into it, a lot of research, a lot of my time, a lot of money for studying. But yeah, it has ultimately been worth every single kind of moment of my time and money that we've put into it. So
beautiful. And what part do you think assisted your hair growth to not be thinning anymore?
Obviously optimal thyroid levels, so your medication has to be at the right level so that your thyroid hormone levels are in the optimal range, not just in range. In range isn't sufficient. You want to be where you're going to be healthy. And that again is in my essential thyroid testing checklist, what optimal is for each test and where you should be. I think other things as well, getting the iron back up, so addressing my stomach acid. And like you, I took digestive enzymes and then found out that it had betaine HCl in there to help with the stomach acid, and I found that wasn't sufficient. My stomach acid was really quite low, so I take a betaine HCl supplement on its own at a higher dose. But I would recommend, if you're going to do that with the guidance of somebody who knows what they're doing. It's not a supplement you want to take without knowing what you're doing. But I needed that in order to start absorbing things like my iron, so I got that back up to the level it should be. Vitamin D was always really low because I struggled to absorb that, and that came back up when I got that stomach acid back up as well. So yeah, that's
and what do you take for stomach acid then?
The betaine HCl is so some digestive enzymes you will find have it included, and that's okay to take as long as you don't have stomach ulcers and things like that, because you may find it irritates, it kind of exacerbates your symptoms if you've got stomach ulcers going on. But I take it on its own in a higher strength because I just don't produce enough on its own. The digestive enzymes with the HCl just weren't quite enough for me.
Got it. This is such good information. I'm so just lucky and appreciative I could pick your brain. And I also know this episode will help others. So who is your ideal client?
Mainly women, because Hashimoto's predominantly affects women. I do have male clients, but it is predominantly female clients. Anywhere from usually mid-20s up. The diagnoses are coming earlier and earlier for Hashimoto's now. It is the number one diagnosed autoimmune condition. So that is usually who I'm working with. I would say those who are really struggling, that have found that the medication just isn't helping. It's keeping them alive, but it's not giving them any quality of life. So yeah, they're really struggling to basically function. Some of them come to me, they're wanting to lose weight. We recently worked with a client that was having fertility issues. She'd been diagnosed with Hashimoto's and was on the IVF path. She'd had one failed IVF. We've worked together and she's now successfully pregnant, which was
fantastic. So, yeah, I will
yeah.
definitely connect you with my local friend who is very aligned with your work. I think you two will enjoy following each other as well. And so people can find you on Facebook and Instagram, right? Do you want to give that information, or if there's also a website, anything you have?
Yep. So my website is helenmallaburn.com. So really simple. And then my Instagram is the same, Instagram/Helen Mallaburn. And then on Facebook, you will find my group under Hashimoto's Nutrition and Health.
Great. I think that's great. And then you also will send people the thyroid testing checklist.
Yeah, that's a free that I have. I have one on brain fog as well, if that helps. If anybody's struggling with that. And I also have a challenge coming up, not this week, I think the week after, so mid-September, that is going to be dealing with blood sugar, sorry, if I can get my words out, blood sugar balancing for weight loss.
Blood sugar balance for weight loss. All of us need that, especially heading into our winter where we get all cozy and get our big clothes out and pretend that we don't need to care. We need to care more in the winter. So I will definitely add that to the show notes so that we can get people on board. And now, Helen, I'm going to ask you to share a dare or a prank story, something that you've done or had done to you, or one of those fabulous family legendary stories that's always talked about when you're together.
Okay, so a little bit of an ongoing prank that we had when we were working. I worked with my husband prior to working as a nutritional therapist. We've worked seasonally across Europe in ski resorts and kind of summer resorts, in luxury villas, luxury chalets. And there was a group of us that had done a couple of seasons together, and we were working in the same luxury block, one on one side and a couple of us on the other. And we shared a storeroom where we kept our shoes and outdoor coats because it was pretty chilly. It was in Zermatt, so it was like -20 walking to work in the morning. It was pretty chilly. But we took it in turns of pranking each other. And some of the ones that I remember would be, one of the girls stitched the sleeves up of one of our jackets. So when we tried to get our jacket on to go out, we couldn't get our arms out and we're stuck in the jacket. Another
picture that just you're flailing in a circle,
flailing around. Another was, I think we put shaving foam in one side of somebody's hat, so when they put it on, it just kind of soaked into their hair. And probably the best one would be one of the girls, the chef, she had made some chocolate mousse and she piped it into the shoes of my now husband, but obviously we weren't married at the time. And obviously when he put his shoes on, it just like squelched and went everywhere. And when he took his foot out, it did not, obviously chocolate mousse resembled a little bit. It was pretty disgusting.
How did he handle that?
He's a bit of a prankster, so he found it quite hilarious. Yeah,
I was assuming so, and that's why you married him. You're like, you handled the fake dog poop mess pretty good. So I need to marry that man.
I would say he was probably an instigator of a lot of the pranks. So things like eggs in people's pockets and shoes and stuff like that.
Whoa. Oh, that's hardcore.
So,
Because I'm
yeah,
picturing eggs, mousse, and shaving cream in 20 below weather. It's a
yeah,
little bit severe. You guys took it to another level. Like you
yeah.
could
And then
just
having to
flake
walk
off your
home and
hair.
yeah, just
Yes,
having to
you
walk, yeah.
fantastic share. I love it. I love it. Well, I am honored to have chatted with you, Helen Mallaburn, and remember that we can only be strangers once. And I invite you to stay weird.
Thank you.